Look at actual scale modelling. This is part 8 of Airfix's Avro Lancaster, scale 1/72. In part 7, I worked on the gun turrets and placing them onto the model. In part 8, I'm going to be looking at the props and getting them placed on. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. My first job, however, is to add some little parts on. This little aerial thing goes in here before I can put on the canopy. It's this little circular aerial thing. Not sure exactly what it's for. There's a little part as well that goes in the front of the nose there, just in forward of the pilot. Again, I think it's an aerial of some sort. Next to go on is the housing or cover for the front gun turret. Now this just lays over the top and slots in to the actual gun turret housing itself. Again, like with the rear, I'm not sure whether there's meant to be a seam here or not, but I've left it as a seam just in case that's how it's meant to be. I had a look at a couple of photos and couldn't quite make out. The rear wheel has fallen off, you can just see that there. Obviously I didn't put enough cement in, but that's easily fixed. I'll put that on later on. But I'm concentrating now on the main canopy, and I'm just putting in a bit of white glue, which is the micro crystal clear, and I'm just putting that along the seams of the back part of the canopy. The front part I'm actually going to be using normal cement. Again, this is just to give me a little bit of a better bond, well, a quicker bond, so that then I can move on with the build. But I have to make sure that the fumes have evaporated before I do this. But the back part really has to have the crystal clear glue because it's resting on another clear part. Otherwise, it would just fog it all up, even if you left it for the fumes. So as you can see here, I'm going to be painting the props, and I'm using Revo Aquacolor also in black gloss. Now, I'm doing this by eye to leave the yellow tips. Those were painted in a previous video using Umbro 24 training yellow. You can, of course, mask this off with a little bit of masking tape. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. On this particular occasion, I just done it by eye. You have to be quite careful when you're doing it, obviously, to try and make it look even, but a small enough brush will do it. Always start away from where you want your line and gradually just work up to the point where you think you should stop. The housing for the prop is painted in Revo Aquacolor 08 matte black. This is the same colour as the underside of the fuselage. So you can see them all there ready to be assembled. So I've got the spinner, the prop, and the connecting pin. So first of all, the spinner goes on. That just clips on. You don't really have to add any cement for this. It will hold on its own. Onto this, where I do add cement, of course, is the backing plate for the spinner. If you want it to be free moving, you have to be careful, obviously, of where you're going to be putting the cement, but that light spinner just pushes on. Now, I found it helpful just to put a bit of clamp onto this. Depending how firmly you push the blades into the props will determine if you have to do this. But just for an extra bit of security, I did add a clamp. And now to put the two parts together, first of all, I take the pin, and that goes through the mount itself first. No cement is required if you're moving it free moving, and then the pin just goes inside the housing, and the tiniest amount of glue here just to hold it. Back to the main part now. There's a series of little hinge brackets that have to be going on from the rudder to the actual wings. On the rear wing as well as the main wing, and it's just two little arched pieces of plastic that go on it. They're quite easily broken, so just be careful with them. Next to go on are the probes and sensors. Now where I'm placing these probes here, this is where I made the original pilot holes at the beginning of the build. That's to hold these. there's one probe and a couple of aerial things. The aerial things look like a TV antenna. They're very delicate, so again, you have to be quite careful how you place them on. Now, I haven't painted these at this stage, but when I go over with the final coat of paint, this is when I'll paint them. I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 05 white here, and I'm going to give it its final coat of white. There's no need to show you all of it, but I'm just painting the sun to down seam lines of the engine cowls first of all, and then I'll apply the same colour over the entire model. And this is where I'll paint in the probes and aerials with the same colour, of course. And once everything's dry, I'll start applying little touch-ups to areas where the white paint has encroached onto. So like the exhausts, for instance. And now for the props. And these just get pushed straight onto the front here. You shouldn't have any issues at all if you're building this kit for this part. Just firmly push them on. If you see a little gap, apply a little bit more pressure and that will disappear. Well, it did in my case anyway. So as you can see, there's only one more to place on. All three so far have been on perfectly, and this one was no exception. Again, just pressing it on a little bit firm push, and that's it. Next is to apply the varnish. So I'm using Pledge Clear Polish here for the varnish. First of all, I'm doing the underside, and once that's dry, I'll do the top side. Now this is an acrylic varnish for this Pledge varnish, so it dries fairly quickly, but you want to give it at least a good hour before you do the next process, probably a little bit more. So once that's dry, it's time to put on the decals, as you can see in fast forwarding this process. Now I'm using micro set for the solution. So softening up the decals in water first of all for about 10 seconds, warm water, and then applying the micro set onto the actual model itself, then sliding the decal on, and where necessary adding another top coat of micro set, and this helps the decal settle in and conform to the actual contours of whatever you're placing the decal on. In this case, an airplane. So if you've got any ridges and bumps and things like that, it just all melts in and then it looks natural once it's dried. But there's not that many decals to go on this Lancaster, only a few. So everything's been left to dry overnight, and what I'm doing now is I'm taking my pencil and running it along the panel lines to give it a little bit darker panel lines. Now of course you can do this with a wash, or anything you want really, whatever you're comfortable with. I prefer using a pencil, other people use a wash. It's whatever you prefer to do. All the results are always almost the same. I like using the pencil because I like how the graphic runs once I place on the last coat of varnish. It adds to the weathering effect of the aircraft. Next I'm using Tamiya's weathering series, and I'm using the series B and the soot component on this one. And I've taken a brush sharpener, that's the rubber or foamed tipped brush that you can get, putting a bit on it and then just streaking it down onto the model. Now this stands out quite well obviously on the white background, sometimes a little bit too harshly, but there's a little trick to deal with that, which I'll show you in a moment. But at the moment, I'm just placing it on, dipping down the brush at the start and pulling back and lifting up the pressure on the brush as I go along. So you get a deep soot effect going to a light. Now, if you find that you have put too much on, just simply take a kitchen towel and moisten it and rub it away. That will lift off any excess that you don't want, and it will blend it into the your paintwork as well, so the streak and soot marks will start to look more natural. And then just apply or take away as much as you like. It doesn't really matter how much you put on, it's whatever your preference is. If you like it to be heavily weathered, that's fine. If you like it only to be slightly weathered, that's also fine, or none of the above. It really doesn't matter. It's your model at the end of the day. And if you're happy with the result, that's all that counts. I keep on saying that in other videos. as well. Just remember there's no pressure in doing these things. Just enjoy it, learn new techniques, and see where it takes you. So I'll carry on weathering the Lancaster, and this is where I shall end part 8. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, and please do so, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date, not only with this build, but all my other builds as well, of course. Hit that like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.